leaders. You came back after you were here as a young global leader. You came back as the president of the National Action Party. Then you came back as the Minister of Energy. And finally, we can welcome you as the president of your country. You are just a few months in your office, but you have already clearly demonstrated your strong will to maintain and to reinforce the rule of law, the integrity of institutions in your country. You all have also shown a strong commitment to enact the necessary reforms in order to make Mexico more competitive in the global economy. Looking ahead, your leadership offers tremendous promise because Mexico, I think, has a number of untapped opportunities, and you want to realize its potential. You are a leader who thinks about those immense possibilities and how to bring the benefits of a growing economy to the Mexican people. Mr. President, welcome back and welcome again in Davos.
Thank you, Mr. Schwab. It's an honor to be here in Davos again. 10 years, time has passed, and the world has changed a lot. Let me switch Spanish for a lot of reasons that I can explain, but the point is, en estos 10 años, el mundo ha cambiado dramáticamente.
In 10 years, the world has changed dramatically.
Ha cambiado el mercado.
Markets have changed, politics has changed, the environment has changed.
Que apenas empezó a nevar en Davos hace apenas algunos días.
As we've seen for ourselves as we arrived in Davos a few days ago. The world has changed. For Latin America, we've been hearing from our recent conversation at the last session, and for Latin America in particular, there is a challenge that we face, and we must be clear in our minds as we face that challenge. I mentioned a little while ago that for our continent, and for Mexico, our challenge is not that we should choose a regime of the left or of the right. For governments of the left exist, which are doing correct things in terms of market protection and investments, and there are conservative governments also in power who are undoubtedly pursuing socialist policies. It's this very dilemma. It's not one between the left and the right, it's between the dilemma, the horns of this dilemma are between the past and the future. Are we going to strengthen democracy, which is the road to the future, or are we going to revert and regress to the dictatorships of the past? Or are we going to promote ever broader, ever more diverse markets, ever more global investments? Or are we going to revert to the regimes of the past with closed economies, centrally planned, controlled by the government, sometimes by means of expropriation? And that's the decision which Mexico had to take on the 2nd of July in the elections. Unfortunately, Mexico decided in favor of democracy. Mexico decided in favor of the market. Mexico decided in favor of public, social, environmental policies that are responsible, that are viable. In a few words, Mexico decided for the future. That was our option, for the future. Some countries have decided otherwise, but I'm convinced that Mexico has to play a role for its own citizens, as well as for other countries in the continent, a role which will guarantee that Latin America can meet its rendezvous with the future on time. So we must change just as the world is changing. And we must be more capable than we've been in the past to adapt to these changes. We must make better use of technology than we have before. And what is the road, what is the route for constructing this future? It seems to me it is through maintaining the equilibrium that we were talking about, as between the market and the state. The market as a necessary condition for having a competitive economy, which is what we need, but not sufficient, because it requires the correcting activity of the state to correct the terrible imbalances and inequalities. I think that we need to change the simplistic models that attribute solely to the market or solely to the state this power to reconstruct society. We need to change the model. So as well as promoting the market, we are also capable of producing results and rapid results for people. I'm convinced that we must construct from the center, respecting the rules of the market, but also respecting the ethical rules of justice and respect for the environment. And let me tell you now why I think that Mexico, while it is not yet the promised land, nevertheless I believe it is the land of the future. Recently, Goldman Sachs, for example, in its predictions, its forecasts for the future, established that for 2040, by 2040, we shall be one of the 5 biggest economies of the world, together with the economies of the so-called BRIC countries. So we can add an M to the BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. We can add Mexico, an M, for a more complete expression, more comprehensive expression, BRIMS, to reflect what is happening in the world. And let me tell you why I think this is going to happen, and how, as President of Mexico, I believe that this is possible, because we have all the advantages to transform our country into one of the 5 biggest economies of the world. First of all, we know, as you know, we have natural resources. We are the 4th petroleum-producing country in the world. We are the 5th country with the biggest biodiversity in the whole planet. We have a strategic geographical position. Other countries, other continents and regions have logistical and transport costs to access to the states. We've got 3,000 miles of common frontiers with the most powerful economy of the world. We've also got 11,000 kilometers of coastline, Atlantic and Pacific, which enables Mexico to occupy a strategic position and to attract new flows of investment and to promote trade worldwide. We also have interest rates which are very low. This is a low-risk country. As low as 1%. And the inflation rates are also being maintained among the lowest rates of inflation of all Latin America. We have our own history. Mexico is a country full of culture and savors and sounds and music, deep roots from which our most valued activities spring on the global level. Also, and I think this is most important, we enjoy political stability. Notwithstanding the intensity of the electoral processes in our country, it is the construction of democratic institutions which we are focused on. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that we have an enormous demographic volume. We are a very young country. The average age in our country is 27. We have a demographic bonus. By 2030, the economically active population, the working population, is going to be larger than the entire retired population and children taken together. This is a singular advantage as compared with other countries, particularly if you look at the developed countries. We are a country which is able to work, which wants to work. And this is a demographic bonus. So we are actually raising a new generation, and this with a new spirit. A new soul is abroad in the country. There's a new generation of Mexicans who are taking control of the economy, of enterprises, of politics, of our culture, and many other things. This rising generation is giving Mexico courage, energy, and a vision of the future, innovation and vision. I'm happy that there is a new Mexico aborning and will be taking the most crucial decisions for the country. Mexico is the country of the future, the land of the future. And if we Mexicans do what we must do, that will be so. We must be clear in our minds what it is we have to do. First of all, the rule of law. Mexico is a country of laws, and I undertook to comply with the law and to fulfill the Constitution. That's the first thing. Secondly, public safety, public security, and I'm very much thank Professor Schwab for his recognition of, on the first day of our government, that we decisively, resolutely took up this challenge of security in Mexico. We haven't shirked. We haven't stinted on public resources in order to bring the full strength of the state to bear on raising the security level of Mexicans. And that's why, on a federal level, we strengthened the Army and the Navy in order to take firm control of those regions of Mexico which are afflicted by conflict. So we've also, in many parts of the country, there are problems, drug problems, and we've actually captured 15 drug barons in different parts of the country. We are determined to win this battle for security. This, of course, will cost money, it will take time, and it will cost human lives, most likely. But in the end, we Mexicans are going to win that fight. Thirdly, a competitive economy, one that creates jobs. We can produce on a competitive level with any other country of the world. And if I look at the indicators of the World Economic Forum, we see that Mexico's competitiveness is growing day by day, indicator by indicator, in terms of efficiency, in terms of transparency, in terms of responsibility of the authorities under the rule of law. Growing competitiveness for Mexicans, because we are well aware that's what we need in order to cope with the costs, the labor costs, the investment costs, the costs of inputs in order to make all this happen. All of this in order to generate the jobs that the country needs. And people don't want to live on charity. They don't want to live on handouts. People want the opportunity to work in order to progress their families. And what we are doing in Mexico now is converting the country, and this is our purpose, into one of the best places for investment in the world. Because that is the only way of generating jobs for Mexicans. It is precisely through investment that will happen. Of course, in our internal market, supporting small and medium enterprises, but also creating conditions for investment to come into Mexico, because we're just one of the possible investment markets. But we want to be the best, the very best place to invest. And undoubtedly, we are now already one of the very best places. And we want to widen opportunities for people. President Fox did a great deal. Did much work, and we've now got an IT programs in all of our schools. We've started to make the educational process more transparent, and you can now actually check out schools and to see which is the best, which are doing better. We're working on our health system. We're working on the indicators of human development, and one of the key such indicators is life expectancy. expectancy and infant mortality. We are working as of now so that in the future Mexico may achieve universal health service coverage. We've already taken the first step. We took the decision through a program to provide universal insurance, universal medical insurance for all children that are born during my term of office. Because and as a fifth commitment, that would be our commitment to the environment. We want to reduce the rates of deforestation in Mexico, which has been one of the worst in the world in the past decade. And we also want 100% treatment of residual waters. Now, a few words about my government. Mexico, with its sensible policies, is resolved to make this a winning country. We in Mexico are convinced that we have to win the future with decision and with courage. We are convinced that we mustn't bury our heads in the sand and blame everybody else for things that go wrong with us. I personally am committed to getting rid of the caricature vision of our country. The sort of caricature Mexico with a big sombrero and a big moustache. That's not the Mexico that is the new rising generation in Mexico. It is Mario Molina, the Nobel laureate in chemistry, who was a pioneer in investigating the ozone layer and the problems in that area. This is a winning Mexico. Mexico, where some of our directors have won the Golden Globe Award. This is a Mexico which is resolved to compete in a world and not to bury our heads in the sand, but to compete with everyone, to compete and to win. We are absolutely determined in this Mexico that we are creating. We are absolutely resolved not just to compete, but to win. We have everything we need to win in the future, and I would invite you to be part of this success story, which we are now constructing with great value, with great decision, and great courage in our country. Mexico is going to be an important player in the decisions of the future. And we are going to carry out. We are going to fulfill the predictions of Goldman Sachs. We will become the fifth largest economy, and not just one of the fifth largest, but one of the most prosperous, and we hope one of the fairest, where there will be the least inequality and the most justice. Thank you very much.
Mr. President.
大統領、どのような将来、あるいはどのような
the objectives, and certainly we wish you all the best. Let's just have one question before you leave us. Just one question or one comment. Please.
Sí, Jacques Bosinski.
First of all, Mr. President, congratulate you on the things you've just said. It's very important for Mexico. And also not bowing the head, not burying the head in the sand. I'd like to perhaps make a comment rather than asking a question. The situation in Mexico in general, in its relations with the United States, has been reactive. It is the United States that put on the table the various matters to which Mexico then reacts. I think this is a very good moment for us to put on the table a whole series of proposals, and above all, because the United States makes very good use of the media. For example, if you look at the immigration problem, every day there's the program on television which explains how things are going. And for years this has been going on. However, Mexico never puts on the table the amount of arms trafficking which you've always said that this is one of the most important security issues because of the association with the drug problem. So these things should be raised, these issues should be raised not just bilaterally. I think they should be raised in terms of public discussion because they are of public concern. Well, no question that the arms trafficking problem is something I don't want to go into now, but if we look at the bilateral agenda that we have in the United States, it's very difficult to invent anything new because it's already very comprehensive. We've got basically two, there's migration and drugs trafficking. And then there is trade and investment, of course. But now the problem is, and for me the challenge is to win the debate in the United States itself, the discussion about immigration, as to whether or not barriers are necessary. We have to recognize the nature of the immigration that takes place, and we have to convince rationally and sensibly, we have to convince North American or American public opinion. These are two clearly mutually complementary economies. North America is Mexico has much manpower, America has much capital, and we have to ensure, in order to tackle the substance of the problem, we need a two-way traffic between the manpower and the investment capital, which will help to make our communities thrive. And meanwhile, while public opinion in the United States itself recognizes the value that Mexican labor has brought to the North American economy, there needs to be greater intelligence in the relationship. We don't want the bilateral agenda to be focused just on one subject. There are other subjects which need to be brought into this dialogue. And we have our own convictions as regards the rule of law, as regards security, as regards drug trafficking as well. And there is a key subject today, which is with the new composition of the United States Congress, there are greater opportunities and more potential for making progress on the migration issue. America is aware that it benefits its own civic concerns, that there should be prosperity and opportunities for the development in Mexico. It is in their own interests, and it's key in this discussion, which is taking place in Latin America, that we should open to the markets, to democracy, to the environment, to responsible social policies, and that all of this move should succeed, and that it should produce tangible results that people can feel, because otherwise the concerns which the Americans feel in regard to other parts of the world as well, may start to experience on its own frontiers. And I see there's much greater sensitivity in much of the United States Congress to this. We all have a great deal to do in carrying this agenda forward cooperatively. Thank you.
We would like to thank President Calderón again for having joined us here in Davos, and we wish him all the best in the execution of his duties during his mandate. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will meet in about 10 minutes again in this hall. Thank you.